Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Expanded Universe, where we sit, enjoy a good book, and then either rant or give it a good review. It really just all depends on our mood.
We do a little bit of all those
Yeah,
things.
yeah. Most of
And
the,
then, so,
what?
and then sometimes we're just like, it was okay.
That might be the worst review of all.
Yeah, that's like 50% of my reviews.
So, what is everyone currently reading?
Trent, you got a list. It sounds like so.
Yeah.
Give us a brief overview of the things you are reading.
Well, I will say I did finish the N.K. Jemisin book I was reading, which was the fifth season, which has already been reviewed here. So I liked it. Yeah, it was good. I sort of figured out the ending a mile away, but
Oh yeah, but by the I don't know, sort of the middle toward the end, you pretty much have figured everything out before they finally reveal everything that's actually going on.
Yeah, the audiobook was good though.
Yeah. I, I, it was my first exposure to the second person style of writing.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't say I disliked it. I mean, at first, it wasn't a dislike as much. It was just odd because, like I said,
Jarring, yeah.
I've never encountered that before. I knew it existed, but I've never seen anyone actually do it. And,
Outside of Choose Your Own Adventure.
sort of, yeah. I don't really remember it there. Maybe because it's just been so long since I've read that type of book. But here it was interesting, really, really interesting. But I found myself those being actually my favorite parts. I need to. I have the second book. I need to actually sit down and read it. But I'm just not really ready to read that much depression. I feel like most of the books I end up reading nowadays, I feel like it's just jam packed full of depression, which is why I think I've read so much urban fantasy this year. Is that's not the main emotional element they go for. Is there, but it's not the main driving force that just seems to be just saturated in the fantasy genre right now.
Yeah, it does. Unless you're reading like high fantasy, which they don't really make anymore.
Yeah, you don't really get too many high. Most now is grim, dark, or epic.
Yeah, and that's why I read older fantasy. I got the second and third books after I finished the first one. I just haven't started them yet.
Though technically,
Because
this series is technically sci-fi. It just has it just has a lot of fantasy elements in it.
yeah, it's somewhere in between.
Yeah,
Sort of like Star Wars is.
yeah.
Right.
But the books I'm reading right now, I've started the Deathgate cycle by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. They're known for creating the Dragonlance series of books, and other things based on trading card games and stuff like that. I'd been wanting to read these for years, basically based on the cover art. I know that's sad, but yeah, I like these kind of covers. I know y'all don't, but I like them.
Actually, I don't mind the Dragonlance style covers. I don't mind those
okay.
so much.
Okay, and this is like those, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, they're a great team. I've read the first Dragonlance book, and it was really good.
Yeah, I was surprised at how much humor is in this one. I wasn't expecting it.
There wasn't all that much humor. I mean, I won't say there was none because with the group dynamic, there's always going to be some humor because there's always going to be a little bit of bickering going on. But I don't remember there being a great deal, mostly because, at least in the Dragonlance books, there's a constant threat that's driving them to go, and there's not a lot of room for humor.
Yeah. And this is the only book series that I've started reading that, and I've checked at the end of every single one of these books because I own them all, that there is a song at the end of the books, complete with, it's like sheet music.
Oh my lord!
Wow.
and that's pretty odd. And there are notes on how to play it on the keyboard,
Oh my
like
lord!
what patches to use and that sort of thing. That's just really bizarre to me. I'm also still directly in the middle of Stephen King's short story collection. I sort of put that down for a while because the short stories aren't too good. It's his third short story collection. And even at the beginning of the book, it's like, okay, I have now exhausted all of the short stories that I wrote that I did not put in the other two.
That's not a selling point there, Steve.
No. And I'm reading / listening to Clive Barker's Everville.
Did you say you're reading / now?
Well, there is a lot of gayness in this book. Because it's Clive Barker, and, he's gay, so he doesn't...
Really?
Yeah. You didn't know
I was actually not aware of that.
Oh, yeah. And he writes a lot of that into his later books. Not as much as earlier books, but there's a lot of detailed sex scenes.
I get the feeling you were trying to find a different word just then.
Yeah. It's weird. I usually listen to the audiobooks while I'm taking my hour-long bath every day. So my parents hear this stuff coming out of the bath.
Don't ever do Laurel Hamilton.
Okay.
Or do it and see and so like a camera outside the bathroom door just to see the reactions.
Hey, it's not as bad as when I was driving the white van with the chipped off paint for the library and having these playing while I'm putting the books in the van.
Oh my god.
Oh, man. You'd be a free candy sign away from an arrest.
Yeah. But yeah, that those are the three I'm reading. The Everville one is the sequel to a book that I read. What was it? The year before last. It's the second of his book of the art. What's supposed to be a trilogy, but this is the second book. It came out in 1996, and he has not written the third book yet.
Huh.
I think he will die first because he's not in great health. So, yeah, he's not going to finish the Aberrat books either, I'm sure. Since it took him like 5 years to write his last book, and it was only like 300-something pages.
Jesus.
Yeah, he's had a lot of health problems lately, so would not expect many more books from him.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So, Brandon, what about you? What's been on your queue lately?
The big thing that I'm still just working on is Swan Song.
I read that book.
Yeah, that's the one I'm slowly working through it. It's like it's close to like 900 pages, so I'm not really rushing to get through it. So eventually, one day, I will review it, but it will not be this day or the next.
This month.
Yeah.
Hey, you're still doing better than me for total books read this year, because my reading this year has been pathetic.
I'm up to 83.
I'm at 80.
But I read some graphic novels and stuff, and so that sort of pads my count.
Honestly,
yeah,
it's like this when you compare last year to this year. the average page count's not even close to what I was last year. I read so many long books last year. This time around, it's not so much.
Yeah, my page count's way down, and the amount of books read is down a bit too.
Oh, mine's definitely down from last year. At this point, I wasn't at past 100. I'm at 80 now. Maybe I might have actually caught up to myself around this time last year, maybe.
But you read a whole lot of really short things at the end of last year, didn't you?
Sort of. They were averaging around 300 pages. I just read through them really quickly. I read like 5, novels, the Quintet series. Just a lot of really shorter-ish books. I mean, they were all above 300 pages, but not by much. Yeah, I mean, last year, my page count was at 42,500 something. This year, it's only at 25,370 something. I'm not that far behind you. I'm at 20.
Y'all are really making me feel small right now with this page count discussion.
I'm at 20.
I've read a literal fraction of what you guys have read.
Hey, so Brandon, you've actually read more than me this year since you got 28,000 something.
Yes, but you have 3 books ahead of me, which is
that's true, and one of those books is like 800 pages.
So anyway,
Brad, you just have not read enough Peter F. Hamilton this year.
Clearly, I've played some video games this year, though. Yep, I did that quite a bit.
Yeah, I haven't done that much.
I did that probably a bit too much. But, nonetheless, I'm reading Ian Leckie's new novel, Providence. And it's really good for all of the 50 pages that I've put into it so far. I only started it 2 days ago, so that's why I haven't got much further than that. Other than that, I've finished 2 books this week, which is the most I've finished in a week all year. People who've read 80 books each. And I'm really excited, actually, to tell you guys about. Actually, both of the books I've read this year have been finished this week.
I was like, wow, you've only read 2 books this year?
I've reviewed more than 2 books this year, so you should know better.
That's just your backlog from years past.
Clearly, yeah.
I will say I did like the book cover of one of the books you're reviewing.
Let me guess, the one for my best friend's Exorcism?
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing?
Yes.
That cover made me buy the book, and the original hardcover is nowhere near as good.
Oh, that's sad.
It's like a yearbook photo of somebody turned away and crying or whatever. It's not even
VHS
close to as good.
Tape cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, the VHS tape cover's fantastic.
Yeah.
But the hardcover cover is not.
Oh yeah, the one they have on Wikipedia is not great.
Yeah, I would not have bought that book. This one I bought because, goddamn, look at that cover. Just look at it. And how could somebody look at that cover and not say, "Oh my God, why have I not read this?"
Yeah, they did what Stranger Things did for their physical media release,
Yes, which I won't lie. When I saw the Stranger Things Blu-ray at Target a week ago, I was like, I don't need this. I can literally watch this at any time. But that's amazing. Does this mean I'm reviewing first? Because I got right to that.
Well, I can tell you this. I'm not reviewing. So am I going to have to review 2 books this week?
If you want.
I can.
Yeah.
And both of the books I read were really good, so I'll review one, Brandon, and then Brandon will do one, and then I'll do the other one. How's that sound?
Okay.
All right, so for anybody who's watching the live stream version of this, I apologize because I'm going to stop so I can do this review. Stop playing my game, that is. All right, so My Best Friend's Exorcism actually came out in 2016. I thought it was a 2017 release. If it was a 2017 release, it would so far be my favorite book for this year. But alas, it's not. It's a 2016 release. It is a horror novel, which is Totally not a thing I usually read, and I was expecting it to be something of a comedy. This book novel is by Grady Hendrix, who also wrote Horror Store, which is a horror novel that takes place in a shop that's very similar to an IKEA. Guess what I'm going to read at some point. Anyway, because this cover was kind of evoking 1980s VHS horror movie cover art, I was like, this is going to be sort of a kind of a spoofy sort of thing, kind of taking the piss out of 80s horror and whatnot. But it didn't at all. I was before we get into it, I will say that I was uniquely surprised by the fact that this book, while it was funny from time to time, it took the horror aspects seriously. This is not just a horror novel, though. This is a book that works on a lot of different levels, such as it is very much a very 1980s soaked novel about teenage best friends in high school, and I'll get to some of the other stuff it does. Anyway, the book is about primarily it's about Abby, who is this book opens with her on her 10th birthday, and Abby has just seen E.T. for the first time, and E.T. made her cry, and she was so convinced that she was now an adult because a movie made her feel something that she could cry about. So, I'm not even kidding. This is the first chapter of this book, and I thought what I was getting, and I thought I knew I was getting to with like the kind of spoofiness with this, but like, so she throws her parents throw her 10th birthday party at the skating rink, and it's all ET'd up, and of course, though, one of the more popular girls in class, held a party the same day at her horse ranch, and everybody went to that instead, except for this one girl, Gretchen. And even though it's like really awkward, she and Gretchen are best friends after this very specific day, after they danced to the song "We Got the Beat" in the middle of the skating rink, singing the wrong fucking lyrics. Cue 6 years later, and they're in high school, and you get a nice frame up of what's changed between then. Gretchen's parents are loaded. This book takes place in Charleston, South Carolina, by the way. Abby's family is poor as hell. Gretchen's family is rich. Everybody that Abby goes to school with at the extremely preppy as hell Christian school or Christian private school, everybody's loaded except for Abby, and this has a lot to do with what goes on in the narrative from here forward, because all of Abby's friends are rich except for her, and this does play into the plot from time to time. So anyway, Abby and Gretchen and two of their friends are out skinny dipping, and they've all decided that they want to try LSD for the first time.
As one does.
Yes. They want to experiment because it's the 80s and they want to try LSD.
Wait a minute, it's the 80s, but they want LSD? Isn't that very 60s?
It is
Shouldn't
very
they be trying
60s.
cocaine?
I imagine they probably have tried cocaine by this point, as loaded as most of these kids are.
Ah.
Anyway, Gretchen, of course, makes a
So
crack
they found their
house.
parents' stash.
Gretchen makes a crack about, not wanting to turn into Sid Barrett. So they all do LSD, and later in the evening, none of them really notice anything. Like, it didn't work. Gretchen walks outside, jumps into the water, and basically disappears. And they find her a couple of hours later, just stark naked, and kind of freaking the hell out a little bit. And they find her out at this...
Does this turn into the end of Sleepaway Camp?
Oh, God.
I cannot finish that joke for you. I'm sorry.
Oh, God.
I never saw Sleepaway Camp.
Oh, God.
Anyway, Abby's the one who finds her out at this weird shed, and there's like a silhouette of somebody out there, and it's just creepy, and it's like typically creepy. Anyway, they go back to school. Gretchen's a little bit different the next time they see her, in that she's starting to smell funny, and she's wearing the same clothes every day, and she's just kind of like greasy and nasty, and
she's become a hipster.
It's the 80s, so no, she was already a hipster. And this escalates over the course of the novel. Like, one of their friends, her boyfriend, kind of gets on her, and she snaps at him and like raises hell at him and says something to the equivalent of. She basically reveals that he sniffs his sister's panties.
Oh, good lord!
In front of everybody in the school, and of course he threatens her and is like raising hell at her. And it reaches a point where Abby is her only friend left, and even Abby's sick of her shit because she's acting really strange and she's just disgusting, and like, there's so little that Abby can do for her, and eventually she just doesn't answer the phone one night when she calls. The next day, Gretchen's perfectly fine and normal again, except everybody's now treating Abby like shit, and she's being accused of all sorts of terrible things. Obviously, Gretchen is now possessed by a demon, and the rest of the book is all of the infighting and such that leads to her eventual exorcism. Okay, now for all the things that the book is doing within this narrative. First off, you have a story about two best friends who are fighting, and it's all because one changed and the other one didn't. Because obviously, whenever you're in high school, people change, and friends split apart and things like that. That happens, and this book handles that as part of the narrative and as a possibility of that narrative. But obviously, that's not the case. Otherwise, this wouldn't be called My Best Friend's Exorcism. But the reason I say that it's doing that is because everything I'm about to mention, it does extremely well. All of these things work very well within the narrative that's there. Like I said before, with Abby being poor, Gretchen literally calls her out. It's like, you used to hang out with your poor friends, but now you only hang out with us rich kids because we do things for you and so on. So that is a valid part of the story. You also have the effective horror novel. I will not reveal the numerous ways this book works as a very good horror book. There's some good skin-crawling moments in there. It's never outright scary or anything, but I don't think I've ever read a novel that was outright scary to me. But it's a very effective horror story. It's a very effective exorcism story, demon possession story. And then there's my favorite part that I was totally not prepared for it to be in this book. Anybody who's into nerd culture knows about the Satanic Panic of the 1980s. Where even He-Man, of all things, was considered taboo by some people, and that it was going to lead their children to Satanism.
And Dungeons and Dragons.
Of course, in Dungeons and Dragons. So there's an ongoing kind of discussion about Satanists and how there's been all these like blood sacrifices, and there's even the suggestion that all of our parents are in on it, and they talk about when Geraldo had all these like members of the Satanic Church on this show.
Oh, come on, they only want to do it for the greater good.
Oh, for the greater good. And then this reaches kind of a point later in the book whenever the high school goes to do their biology lab, for anatomy, and they would have to dissect something. Someone stole a baby, like a baby that would have been used for dissection. And obviously everybody thinks that somebody in the class is a Satanist.
As one does.
Yes. the fact that that's even an aspect of this book and it's written and woven into the narrative as it was is it's stellar. Like every one of these aspects of the book fits together so well. Even the actual exorcism scene calls back to the most important part of the story, which is the friendship between Abby and Gretchen. Here's the other thing that I can say I'm impressed by is the fact that it did a book about the 80s without it just being a bunch of 80s jokes and 80s references. It references the 80s, but like it's not calling attention to the fact that it's taking place in the 80s constantly, specifically so that you know you're reading a book about the 1980s and that you should have nostalgia for every single thing in there. Anything it brings up has a point later in the book. Everything matters for exactly what it is.
So, no, she was watching the Smurfs while wearing her Care Bear socks.
Exactly. You got it. I will say this, though. It's also touching. The way this book closes is it's absolutely beautiful what ends up happening on the page and what this book is ultimately about, which is it's a book about friendship while also being a book about being possessed by an owl demon. I love this book. I want everybody I know to go out and buy a copy of this book because I loved it that much. I love how funny it was. I love the fact that it worked as a horror book. I like that it actually was a little weird to read. I love the fact that it was a constant page turner. Following about after page 100, I read the rest of the book in a day. I read 240 pages of this book in a day. I haven't done that with the book all that much recently. I got to a point where once things got really serious, in terms of Gretchen's possession, I just couldn't stop reading it. And also, there is a line. I want to close my review on this, and this is part of where take in mind that yes, the exorcism scene is really fucking good. The priest who realized that Gretchen is actually possessed by as awful of a demon as she is part of a troupe of Christian bodybuilders that had come to the school to put on a show.
Oh my god.
The youngest of these guys is the one who saw the demon on her. And whenever he meets Gretchen to discuss what they're going to do about this situation, he's eating corn dogs, and he says, "Corn dogs are all the proof that I need that God exists." That is a line of dialogue you will get in this book. And you know what? It's so fucking perfect for this character because he's totally not either of the priests from The Exorcist, and you don't believe he can do what he's called to do. Excellent book. If I was going to give it a star rating, I'd give it a solid 5 out of 5. I loved every page of this damn thing.
So
go and read it. Please go and read it. This dude deserves your hard-earned cash for his writing. I'm going to read Horror Story at some point.
Are you going to read Satan Loves You?
I need to find out what all his stuff is because I think he's done a lot of self-published work. Because his first major publication was Horror Story.
Uh-huh.
And I'm guessing the rest of this is...
Well, I was on Goodreads, and he wrote his own review for his own book for Satan Loves You.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it says, "I wrote this book, but still I am always surprised by just how awesome it is. I have used it to convince a rampaging bull not to attack, to help a bear enter early hibernation, to hypnotize an enormous bee, and to cure a child with a high fever."
That's awesome.
I want to read his book that's Paperbacks from Hell.
Yes.
A history of horror fiction in the 70s and 80s. Because that's just right up my alley there.
I wouldn't mind reading that as well. You'll have to let me know how that one is. I just saw, and I'm not surprised about this, he is from Charleston, South Carolina. And that's the other thing. Sean is from Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
Or he's lived in Charleston. He's not from Charleston, but he's lived in Charleston for a long time. And the way he's talked about Charleston, it's like, man, I believe it. I believe this book in terms of how it makes the people from Charleston look. I get the feeling he doesn't like a lot of people in Charleston, meaning this author. So yeah, I need to read Horror Store at some point. I love this book. I was going to say one more thing about it, but now I can't remember what it was. But yeah, go read it. Just go read it. Love it. Love it. Buy the paperback because it's got a better cover. Brandon, I think it's your turn.
So, I've reviewed Simon Green on the podcast before with his Nightside series. But he has several different ones, and aside from Nightside, the other big one is this series called Secret Histories, which is a hybrid of two things that I thoroughly enjoy. One being James Bond spy movies, and of course, urban fantasy. And he plays up both sides of that very well. Like, the gadgets, the inventor of the gadgets being, how Q likes to demonstrate his little wonderful inventions. You have characters like that in this book. So I jumped on this series not as quickly as I wanted to, because when I first read about what it was supposed to be, I was like, I have to read this. Because he has a wonderful sense of humor, and he also has that little stamp upon his books. So, the premise of this is that there's this family in England who, basically a bunch of spies who protect society from, things that, like to exist in the night. The paranormal, ghosts, vampires, whatever, what have you. Though typically when you are reading a Simon Green novel, you do not usually read about these things. He likes to create his own little weird creatures. In this, the book's called The Man with the Golden Torc. So it's a rip-off of, with the Man with the Golden Gun, of course. And it's about, like I said, it's about this family, and they all have these golden torcs around their necks that allow them to tap into this special power or whatever that allows them to basically just dominate everything like they're a fucking juggernaut. Because you can't be killed when you're encased into this suit of armor that it allows you to have. So basically, this family they sort of rule the world, because nothing can really stand against them. Anytime that one of these people steps onto the scene, everyone basically runs in fear, because they're usually people die. What happens when James Bond goes on the scene? Pretty much everyone usually dies, with whether or not he means for it to happen. Along with that, he starts developing this little backstory with from English lore, with like the Druids and things like that, and that's where these people are descended from, the Druids. They encountered this entity from another realm that's basically changed, history into what they currently have in this book series. And as you're going along, you start getting revealed about how things actually are in the world versus what the main character is taught to believe, because they teach everyone in this family that that they are the good guys. They're the ones that are actually protecting everyone, and which in reality they're actually the ones that are the tyrants. They're the ones controlling the world and not really telling everyone the truth. So, the character goes through a bunch of things trying to figure out what's going on and why things are the way they are. So that's the premise. His writing in this one, I don't think it's as good as what the stuff I read in Nightside, mostly because this book series is longer. The Nightside books average around 200 pages, so it doesn't allow for a lot of indulgence in world building. It does have some, but it doesn't waste pages. And while this one was close to 400 pages, so he had a little bit of room to sort of waste time, and he did a little, which, I mean, it's fine. Some authors are allowed to do that. But I do think it weakened the book maybe just a little. But you still get the weird characters that he likes to build, like in the first real major scene for the character. He's just driving down a road and he starts getting attacked by just random things. At one point in time, he's fending off against a series of cars that aren't actually cars. They look like cars. They have a humanoid-looking thing in the driver's seat, but they're actually demons. That they describe that if you didn't know any better, you would end up getting. They would eat you. They're not actually cars. They're a creature that would appear in the night side, and they would constantly describe how it's never a good idea to ever cross the road because that car that you're walking in front of may not actually be a car. Another thing he had to deal with was wizards, basically, and I can't remember. There was some type of flying contraption that he had to deal with. I'm trying to remember all the weird shit that was in this damn book. There were a few different things, but it's hard to describe because it's more akin to like a psychedelic atmosphere, so it's not something you can really describe. It's just something you have to read to see. But no matter where he goes, though, everything he encounters ends up being destroyed. Like, he would encounter a new group of people, and by the time he was done with them, their entire way of life has been utterly devastated because of his involvement. Yeah, it's just a fun book. It's not entirely incredibly like deep. It does have the urban fantasy aspect of that, because I have yet to read an urban fantasy that requires a lot of thinking power to understand what's going on. It's nothing like the Fifth Season or trying to pick apart a Hamilton science fiction novel. It's usually just very straightforward. It's just for pure enjoyment, which is definitely Simon Green. If you want a book that's just pure entertainment, good, well-written entertainment, then you would definitely enjoy any of his writing.
I need to read some of his books because you keep reviewing them.
I do, and they are really good. Like the Nightside series is more of a horror influenced science fiction, urban fantasy thing, and I still think it's really, really good. I mean, even I can't even say it's good for what it is. It's just a damn good book. And this one, it's more when he brought in the James Bond influence. It's more of like more of the Roger Moore edge of James Bond. Where it's a little more comedic. The gadgets are a little over the top.
Played more for camp than say the
he doesn't. It doesn't. He's not. Taking a car and flipping it over a bridge or whatever. He's not doing with weird sound effects. It's not that type of campy, but the gadgets, the gadgets are they can seem like they'd be stupid, but they use them in such a way, at least in this one book so far, that it actually had a purpose to be used. Like they gave him a watch where he could go back in time. See, what was it? You click. You always had the two buttons you have to push on the watch to activate it. And I think in this, every activation was like either it might have been 30 seconds to a minute back in time. There was an instance where he was fighting something bad happened that he went back in time so many times that he ended up breaking the watch because always if you're a spy you can't just use your gadgets, you have to break them.
Right. Well, you can't bring it back to Q in pristine order after all.
Yeah. So
balls Q.
Yeah.
Bolus 007.
I do wish though that there was not a Ghetto Blaster in this. But I did thoroughly enjoy the fact that they did have like that moment where he went to the armory and received all these weird gadgets that eventually will be used, and so yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the book. It's a little longer than the Nightside books. This one, like I said, was around 400. If you were to check out his stuff, I would strongly recommend doing the Nightside series first, just for the simple fact that it is a lot shorter. So if you ended up not liking his writing style, the most you wasted was 200 pages of your life.
All right. So is it my turn again?
Mm-hmm.
All right, because here's a big surprise. I'm going to review another horror novel.
Yeah, that is a surprise.
This one's a sci-fi horror, but it's still horror.
That's okay. You're taking my place this week, so that fits.
All right.
Since that's what I usually review.
So I will open by saying I did not expect this book to unnerve me as much as it did. I did not know this book was horror when I picked it up. And that book is Annihilation by Jeff VanderMeer. This book is the first volume in the Southern Reach trilogy, and it is being adapted into a film. It's coming out early next year, starring Natalie Portman and directed by the same guy who did Ex Machina.
Oh.
So I really want to see the film. I saw the trailer before we bought the book. I bought this at a little shop called Page 158 Books here in Wake Forest. And if you live in the Raleigh area, Page 158 Books is very cool. Very cool little shop. So, Annihilation is... Let me go ahead and say it this way. Annihilation is exactly what I wanted H.P. Lovecraft to be. It does that very specific type of horror that he writes, with style and class, and not a single drop of racism or sexism. So it's everything.
And isn't long-winded as fuck?
It does exactly what Lovecraft does, but well. In that, and I say that in the sense that Lovecraft stories are somebody describing a thing that happened. Except, it's not happening in the present. In Lovecraft, it's an account of something. And whenever you're reading in Lovecraft, it is boring. I'm sorry. I could not do it with Lovecraft. I did not like the way he wrote. I like the style of horror he's trying to do. But this is it. This very thing is exactly what I wanted Lovecraft to be, down to the letter. And now let me tell you about it. The first volume of the Southern Reach trilogy, Annihilation, follows 4 women a biologist, an anthropologist, a psychologist, and a surveyor whenever they go out into a place called Area X. This place is cut off from all of civilization by a strange border that all of these people have to be hypnotized to be carried through in order to do their analysis of the site. This is the 12th expedition of Area X. Every previous expedition sees the people coming back either dead, or they're found dead, they just disappear, they commit suicide, they come back with severe mental trauma. Sometimes they come back completely absorbed by cancer, which is what happened to the previous expedition, where the biologist, who is the main character of this novel, her wife was part of the previous expedition. And when he came back, he just appeared at home one night. Couldn't tell you anything that actually happened. Didn't really talk about it. But whenever the organization that sends these expeditions into Area X came to get him, he died the next day. So the expedition, whenever they arrive in Area X, they come to this giant opening in the ground, which everybody says is a tunnel, except for the biologist. The biologist calls it a tower. To her, it's a tower. And when they go downstairs, they see this plant material writing words on the wall, this long, ongoing narrative. The next day, someone else has disappeared, and the psychologist is acting incredibly strange and giving them orders to go back and continue their research in the tower. What follows is the breakdown of the 12th expedition and more of a personal analysis of the biologist as a person, her history, her relationship with her husband, and how that has affected her going into Area X and what Area X actually could have meant to their relationship. That is, in short, the novel. To say more would really give away a lot of what makes this book incredibly special and creepy as fuck. I remember the first night I was reading this, and this book is only 5 chapters. It's very short, at only about 200 pages. They're very long chapters, obviously. And I'm reading the part where they're in the tower. Let me frame this up. So, Brandon, this was the weekend you were visiting. One of the weekends the last time you visited. Jo was sick, so she was actually asleep downstairs. So I'm laying in bed by myself reading this book with my book lamp on to light the page. And Amanda, who's our roommate, has just stepped across the hall. Actually, no, Brandon, you came downstairs. You went to the first floor to get a drink or something, right? Mm-hmm. And the noise in the hallway startled the fuck out of me. Because I'm reading this first scene where they're in the tunnel and the writing is on the walls, and the other person has just disappeared, and all of these things are happening, and I literally was just like freaked the hell out, and I shined my damn book lamp up into the hallway. Not because anything was specifically happening on the page, because like I said, this book is written as an account of the expedition. Because it's the biologist's journal that she is writing by hand. Because they can't take technology into this place because bad things happened when they took technology into this place. It is a stellar, tense novel with a resolution that I was both satisfied with, but not, because it was interesting, but it didn't really do anything to end the story, so to speak, because I can't say without spoiling it. But there are 2 follow-ups, Authority and Acceptance. And I haven't read those yet. And I will, because this book was pretty damn exceptional. It's very good science fiction in that it's about 4 scientists going in to do an expedition of a strange area. And it does that aspect very well. But for me, it feels more like a horror novel. It's actually not a comfortable book to read. It is very much that Lovecraftian people going insane from something that they don't understand kind of horror. And
In the Mouth of Madness.
Yes, except good.
The movie. Hey, the movie In the Mouth of
Oh,
Madness.
sorry. I'm thinking about At the Mountains of Madness.
Which that was, the title is obviously.
Yeah, I know. It's an obvious reference to it. I would say, I love it. I love In the Mouth of Madness, but this is closer to Lovecraft than that even. This is uncomfortable and creepy as hell, in the sense that as I'm reading it, I felt close enough to what was happening to the biologist on the page that I had to shine my damn flashlight into the hallway. So, yes, excellent book. Another one that I say people go buy this before the movie. Buy this one, read it before the movie, because frankly, the movie's going to be very good if it's anything like this book. I'm thinking that since it's the same director that did Ex Machina, that's good. That's really good. This is a good follow up to what he did with Ex Machina.
It'll be better than The Snowman.
That won't be hard. I saw that movie actually.
I've heard bad things.
I don't think it was as bad as the reviews say, but at the same time, it's nothing special. I think its biggest problem is when the marketing tries to make it look like a horror movie, and it's not. It's just a crime drama.
Like Insomnia was.
Yeah, but Insomnia at least had some style to it. This was just kind of a crime movie. It's like a long episode of a crime drama on television.
Oh, I don't even watch those because they're all the same.
Exactly. I never need to watch it again. I wasn't like mad that I saw it.
It did have dubbed Val Kilmer though.
Right. Oh, this is much better than The Snowman. But that doesn't take a lot. I only saw The Snowman because I had Movie Pass.
Buy Movie Pass, people. I haven't yet, but I'm going to.
Movie Pass is so worth every penny. That's how we saw Geostorm. We didn't pay money to see Geostorm.
If come December you want to see the new Star Wars like 10 times, there you go.
Hey, man, that's already a plan. We're already talking about going to see Thor again because somebody was ruining the experience for Joe.
So I heard. I'm going to go see that tomorrow.
It's good. It's a lot of fun. The other thing I can't wait to see is The Disaster Artist, which is another book I need to read.
Yeah.
Have you seen trailers for that, guys?
Yes, I have.
Brandon, have you seen the trailers for The Disaster Artist?
I haven't passed, yeah.
James Franco is doing a terrifyingly good job being Tommy Wiseau.
I want to see Tommy Wiseau's reaction to the movie.
Oh man, so do I. Especially since one of the things that's in the movie that I'm curious to see if it's in the book is Greg Sestero asking, "Where's the money come from? Where do you get $5 million to make this movie?" Because that's a question I want answered myself.
So, if the movie does well and they do a sequel, is it going to be about the back and forth between him and Doug Walker?
Doug Walker can just play himself.
Yeah.
Not like he's doing anything else.
No.
Oh, it'll be about Tommy Wiseau's video game reviews.
Or that TV show he had for a while.
Oh my God, The Neighbors.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord. I've only ever seen like 5 minutes of that, and that was too fucking much. It made The Room look amazing.
I have not watched The Room all the way through because I could not make it through.
Oh my God, I've seen it twice. One time with no assistance, and the other time we saw it Riff Tracks Live. And Riff Tracks Live has created one of our house in jokes that we'll throw out from time to time, like we're watching a movie or something. And that is a line from that horrific way too long sex scene at the beginning of the movie.
Uh,
What? That doesn't work. He must have a hip dick. He's got a hip dick.
which they make fun of in the movie. Why is he having sex with his belly button?
Oh yeah, yeah, with her belly. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's gonna be good. I need to read the book though. Oh, too many books, not enough time.
Yeah.
There's two Kevin Hearn novels out that I haven't even bought yet.
I have 200 books sitting here waiting to be read.
Yeah, probably got somewhere around that area too. I'm trying to catch up all the books I bought this year though, and after I read Provenance, I'm going to read Tropic of Kansas, which I'm really looking forward to reading.
Not Tropic of Cancer, which is a different book altogether.
No, Tropic of Kansas, the book that's very anti-Trump, apparently.
Oh.
Which is funny because
it's weird.
Been writing it for like 5 years.
It's weird how many books I've read lately that mention Trump by name, and these books were written in like the 90s, and I'm just like, okay, what? I know he was like one of the supposedly wealthiest guys and everything, but it's just weird that every book I'm reading lately seems to have his name in it.
The only thing I've really got to respond with that is that last year, after he was chosen as a Republican candidate, the Cinema Snob did a review of a film called Ghosts Can't Do It. And it's literally a movie about... It's one of the most malicious romantic comedies I've ever heard of in my life. And it is, in fact, about the fact that ghosts can't have sex, and it's a murder... And it's got a lot to do with murder, this movie. And Donald Trump is in it as himself, and the movie's really proud of this fact.
I'm sorry, but the only movie I'll watch with Donald Trump in it is Home Alone 2.
That's about the only... Yeah. And even that, I don't know. Home Alone 2 is not very good.
Even then, he had to talk himself into the role because the only reason he was in it is because he owned the hotel. And I think it was in his in the agreement to use the hotel, he had to have a cameo.
Wow. That's a thing. That's a thing that has happened. That is cinematic history now. You know, it's also...
Can't we please learn that he, molested Macaulay Culkin or something?
Are you saying that that's what happened to Macaulay Culkin's career after?
It'd be surprising if we learned it. Oh, it wasn't Michael Jackson. It was Donald Trump.
Secret histories of Hollywood. Give it a few months.
Yeah, that's what the Russians are hiding.
It's not a golden showers tape.
No, or it is. It's just not who we think it is.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you.
On that note,
yeah. Thank you, everybody, for listening this evening. That got weird at the end.
Yeah, it did. Macaulay Culkin and golden showers.
That is not a sentence I ever need to think about again. All right, well, thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next week on the Expanded Universe show. And until then, you can follow us over at Facebook and Twitter at ZTriggerLive. You can also continue to view us here on YouTube or Twitch, whichever one will eventually get us hits, because something's got to work. And also, we are available on iTunes and Podbean, although Podbean and iTunes will start... These will have to be downloaded when they come out from now on, because we are not doing archival anymore. Maybe we'll archive on YouTube. I don't know. Not that that'll help anybody. But that's just a little PSA information there for everybody. Until next time, though, farewell from the Expanded Universe, and we'll see you next time.
Laters.
You seeing you.